Stopping Dangerous Foreign Technology from Entering the U.S. Laura Fraedrich is Senior Counsel at Lowenstein Sandler LLP. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Bob. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for being with me today. Laura, what is the RESTRICT Act, the Risk Information and Communications Technology Act?
It is a new bill that has been introduced in the Senate. It's a bipartisan effort to try to address potential vulnerabilities by foreign ownership of any technology in the information and communications industries.
Mm-hmm.
So the concern is that certain foreign-owned technology might create a national security risk for the United States. And the goal is to provide, through the RESTRICT Act, a review mechanism. The Department of Commerce would be directed to stand up a review process that would allow it to review any investments or ownership by 6 currently identified foreign adversaries. And that is China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela. Right now, those are the only countries who have been identified, but that can change.
Mm-hmm.
So the Department of Commerce would have 180 days to review transactions where they think the use of this foreign-owned technology would create potential national security concerns.
I see. Well, the obvious impetus here has got to be TickTock and its interest in the fact that it's owned by Chinese interests. But is it a larger effort, or is this really just a TickTock thing, and then they want to throw in other types of possibilities further down the line?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just TikTok, but it's mainly China. So it's, we previously had some issues related to Huawei, particularly Huawei's hardware,
right.
And there have been controls related to that. But it's certainly about China. All of the comments after the bill was introduced referenced China, and many specifically referenced TikTok. But I don't know that, I think it's very broadly China related.
Yeah, but the spotlight right now globally is on TikTok, and indeed a number of foreign governments are banning the use of TikTok in any application that they use. So does this potential regulation, just cover the use of this technology by government, or would it be expanded to include the presence of it anywhere in any systems, consumer, business, and government?
It covers the use of it anywhere in any systems in the United States.
I see. So
So
how would you do that? I mean, how would you ban that? Like me, a consumer, if I wanted to use one of these applications, I would be unable to in some way if it was determined to be a highly vulnerable app. How would you stop me from doing it?
Well, the Department of Commerce is going to review these transactions that occur that would involve the use of foreign technology. And they have the ability under the RESTRICT Act to ban the transaction or to try to mitigate any concerns related to national security. So the effect would be that you never get access to that foreign technology to use in the first place if the RESTRICT Act provisions and review were to take place and determine that there was undue harm, potential harm to our national security.
Of course, as we all know, there's a multitude of workarounds that internet hackers have to get access to what they're not supposed to have access to. So maybe there are some loopholes there. I don't know. Also explain to me Laura, explain to us, what is the Committee on Foreign Investment and how is that tie in with this particular effort?
Well, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States is an interagency committee that currently has the right to review any transaction where a foreign entity will get control over a U.S. business, or in some cases, less than control if there's certain technology, if it's a technology infrastructure or data business in the United States. So there is some overlap here. Certainly some of the transactions that commerce would be directed to review under the RESTRICT Act also could be reviewable by CFIUS. And sometimes there's mandatory CFIUS filings, and sometimes they're voluntary. So it allows commerce to step in, even when CFIUS might not in some circumstances, but there's certainly a bit of overlap.
You repeatedly use the word transactions, and I'm wondering just what that means. I mean, let's say that a user just goes on TikTok. Does that constitute a transaction, the mere access to a social media platform that might be controlled by one of these governments? Or do you have to actually do something on that platform? Do you have to make a literal transaction in order to meet the definition?
Yeah, the Restrict Act is more directed at not individual users of this technology,
Mhm.
but the companies that own them, and to try to
I
make
see.
sure that the foreign technology does not get into the companies where there could be a concern. You mentioned, concerns about cybersecurity and things like that, and uh, people who are adverse to the Restrict Act point out that some of these targets that have been talked about, TikTok, Huawei, have never yet been accused of having some sort of incident related
Mhm.
to national security, whereas very domestic systems have been used for
Yeah,
cybersecurity hacks
for sure.
and for espionage and things like that. So it's not going to necessarily restrict the possibility of that ever happening again. It's just, I think, mainly an attempt to control China's access to our information and technology infrastructure.
I see. And even though, I mean, you're talking about hacking and cyber attacks and the like, but what about just the mere harvesting of data, especially on
Well,
the consumer side? I mean, that is the concern in Europe with the GDPR, the General Data and Protection Regulation. Is this similar to that in any way? Does it extend to just the use of, protection and privacy of our data at the hands of these foreign entities?
there's some concern about that, but that also has been very much covered by the 2018 update to the CFIUS law, the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act,
I see.
which put data much more on the forefront. So the ability of really any foreign, there's concern about any foreign, not just limited to China, but any foreign access to US citizens' personal data.
I see.
And the reviews can happen through the CFIUS process, but there would be overlap here with CFIUS and the Restrict Act also.
Well, interesting that the debate over the Restrict Act dramatizes perhaps, I may be exaggerating to say this, but it seems to be the only issue that has reached bipartisan agreement right now, that both sides are just radically in the same court. And as we saw just yesterday in that testimony, boy, they just tore into the head of TikTok. So indeed, are we, is this pretty much a fait accompli? Are we going to see this act pass and enacted?
I think that it will pass and be enacted. There is support from the White House, and the bipartisan support here also extends to China writ large.
Hmm.
So I think there's just a lot of concerns about the US relationship with China. And this is one area where Congress has taken action. I think in large measure, this action is due to the President Trump's executive order to ban TikTok, which was overturned by the courts
Hmm.
because he used as his authority the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which has an exception for personal communications. So that's why
Oh.
the court said that the ban could not go forward. And so Congress said, okay, we need a new authority then. If that's not the right authority because of the way that authority is written, we will
Mhm.
write a new authority that will allow this to happen.
Have the same effect. So this in
Yeah.
fact closes a loophole that was identified by the courts in that previous regulation. So looks like the chances are good. We're going to see this. I mean, what might be the impact on U.S. business? Is it going to have kind of a negative impact at all? Is it going to restrict their ability to engage in transactions, to deploy the types of technology they want to deploy?
Yes, it very much could. I think it's going to hinder the globalization of information and communications technology.
Hmm.
And they're going to have to be looking for other places than China to get software written and hardware put together and anything related to the communication infrastructure of the United States. It's going to be hard to partner with China on those issues.
Does the Restrict Act, if passed, allow for the provision of simply adding countries at will? And how easy would that be for the Commerce Department to say, now here's three more countries that we
It does
feel we could
allow
just.
for the adding of countries.
Mhm.
I think that given the nature of the countries that have currently been identified, they would be countries where we've determined to take other types of economic sanctions. That's
see.
the main thread here. With China, China's the only one that doesn't have more robust economic sanctions, but there have been lots of designations of different Chinese entities to the sanctions list because of their activities. And I think it falls under that sort of activity.
Okay, well, it looks like this is coming in some way, shape, or form, and it's good that businesses know about it. And thank you, Laura Fraedrich. Always good to talk to you, bring us up to date on what's happening with the Restrict Act and similar types of restrictions on foreign and vulnerable technology. Thanks again for talking with me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Bob. Take care.